Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having me. Really loved everything that I've heard so far. That was really amazing. Loved the breakout sessions too. Thank you so much. You might be wondering, why is an NGO sharing with you about digital transformation and what could you learn from us? And I'm going to share a couple of the challenges we've had. I'm going to try to inspire you a little bit with one of the campaigns that we had here in Singapore in 2018 and 2019. But really, I think what digital journey and digital transformation means for us is really about, for one, I think, relationship and community building that is internal as well as external when we think about our journeys. I'm going to touch a bit on that. I think a lot is about anticipating problems or reactions when we build our digital journeys, and how do you map that out. A lot of long-term thinking too, but at the same time, quick delivery, quickly demonstrating success too seems to be quite key. And I'll try to touch upon a couple of these. And really, I think don't have many of the solutions, to be very honest, but I can share some of the challenges and learnings. So hopefully that there are some good points for you to pull out of that. WWF is 60 years old soon. We're a global organization in over 100 countries. So digital transformation, oh my God, it's required literally everywhere in our business. And I think the couple of things that I just want to highlight is one of our key business models here in Singapore, and literally we run fundraising like you would probably run a sales organization. Everyone has their KPIs and so on. But overnight with COVID, our entire face-to-face fundraising team that usually you could bump into on an MRT station or somewhere at a mall or on the street in beautiful black and white t-shirts had to go back to office, and entire income stream all of a sudden was completely at threat overnight. And yeah, up until this day, they weren't able to go back out, and we've started to pull them back into the office in March. The other big point that we've had that really helped us to kickstart our digital transformation very quickly, not just fundraising, but is an event. We're running Earth Hour every year. You might have heard of that event when everyone switches off their lights for an hour. Thanks to Sid's great work in the past, we're celebrating that moment still. But we used to run a 40,000 people event right in the heart of Singapore, in front of the Marina Bay Sands overlooking the bay. And 5 days before that event was about to commence, the government limited any kind of public events to a maximum of 10 people. So overnight, we've had to rethink the entire effort and create a digital experience of what we've planned to be a physical event. So there's many, many different challenges, of course, and overall, of course, as WWF, we're running on tiny budgets and trying to do a lot of different things. But I want to share with you first, I think, a little bit of our campaigns and a little bit of how we're thinking when we're engaging our donors, our supporters on some of the key issues that we're tackling. And to do so, I'll take you back to 1990. I don't know if you were born. I was 10 at that age, and 1990 was the year of Patrick Swayze, if you remember, and Ghost. It was also the year of MC Hammer, where he was untouchable. It was the year the internet was born. It was also the year Nelson Mandela was released from prison, Berlin Wall, and the second prime minister in Singapore came to lead us all. It was also the year where actually we should have been able to stop poaching of elephants for good. In 1919, the global governments came together at the CITES conference and decided that the trade of any kind of ivory is illegal. So we should have fixed this problem about 30 years ago today. Unfortunately, we haven't. And this is a picture of a seizure in Singapore that happened in 2018 March. We've had, unfortunately, many, many more since that point. But in that single seizure that came through a container through Singapore, 850 elephants, or the equivalent of 850 elephants, was found of tusks on their way somewhere to Asia Pacific for carving or turning into other products. So unfortunately, 30 years later, we're still facing this big problem. And of course, as I've told you, we're 60 years old. So WWF has been saying for 60 years, we need to protect these species. We need to make sure this doesn't happen. We can't have another species like this die and go extinct on our watch. But still, as we speak, about every 25 minutes, one elephant falls victim to this illegal trade that we're still having. So we were really looking at what are the problems, and digital helped us so much. We were looking, of course, at, the go-to for an NGO is always, what does the government do? What could they be doing better? How can we get better policies and so on? And where do these policies need to be strengthened? Well, we basically went to see what's actually happening in the market. We've sent out our entire office to survey half of or most of Singapore and look how many shops still sell ivory. Why is this still a thing after 30 years? And then we've undergone a lot of digital studies to figure out as well how many people in Singapore actually understand the wildlife laws and what is allowed and what's not. What we found is that over 40 shops in Singapore still sell ivory, a couple of pieces or big operations. And that is 30 years after it should have stopped. And that's 30 years after new ivory should have come into Singapore. So that's quite clear that at this point, there must be a huge loophole or something going on that prevents all of that. So this illegal trade that obviously is causing a lot of the problems in the landscapes in Africa and parts of Asia where elephants are, is still in plain sight right here when we walk around. There's 120 Starbucks, I think, in Singapore, and then there's 40 shops still selling ivory. We don't see them just as much as Starbucks, but it is quite obvious and in plain sight. So we thought about how can we create a digital campaign on a shoestring budget, and it has been a budget of around 15K, so just that you have a bit of an understanding, because we have to grow quite a lot in the team, on how can we change that and what can you do. WWF has spoken about this for 30 more years. How do we really drive change here and set enabling conditions for the government to come in and do better? So that was one of the key campaign points. And just to show you what happened since is one of the authorities here in Singapore has launched a public consultation following this on public support and feedback on a complete and total ban of ivory in Singapore. And that came back with 99% of support from the general public, and ultimately led to the announcement of a total ban in ivory in Singapore, which will come into effect in about 10 months' time. Now, why am I showing you this, and what is it around digital transformation and how we're working there? So for one, I think what is important to note and why we're quite proud of this and what it has achieved is the entire piece came about from an in-house team. So we've strategically hired talent, very young talent as well. So just to reemphasize as well what Vicky has said earlier, that people really make or break these things. They come with some of these ideas, they bring them to life. And I think one of the key learnings for our digital transformation here and journey is that this is not a very traditional approach, of course, and took us a lot of internal engagement and also a lot of internal hurdles to come through. At the end, we've tapped into what the digitally connected out there are really, caring about, and we've given them an opportunity to engage and to get behind a cause without even saying that it's WWF who is asking you to do something. We've basically been able to get hundreds of thousands of people to say what we are always saying, and therefore enabling to really drive change. The fun part of this is of course, these kind of ideas never happen at the most senior level. They come from sometimes an intern, sometimes a new hire, sometimes a young professional that just started out and still is very creative when they look at the different points of the problem. And I think what we've really looked at in terms of journey, it wasn't just about how do you set this up, but to set up an effort like Ivory Lane that goes out without branding. We've literally started social media channels from scratch. And all of this was was 90% organic reach as well. So we started pretty much overnight with that one influencer post that you've seen in the video by Live Low. And we had to map out the entire journey that people would take. So we started off by promoting the brand, putting out the brand, the website, a brand narrative, and a preview of an online shop, which really started the debate. And we've anticipated, of course, that animal lovers would be triggered, just as Mothership has picked up here. But then we've also known that we need to take that a step further. And so once that stage was reached, we've released a statement for Ivory Lane from its founder that clarified that all of the ivory on the website actually is legally sourced in or legally coming into Singapore or legally brought into Singapore, which then of course sparked another huge debate. And then all of a sudden the attention moved away from Ivory Lane itself and moved to start a conversation amongst people about why ivory should be banned, how this is a problem, and what really can be done about it. And that was exactly, of course, what we were hoping to get and what we're hoping to map out. I hope that was a bit of an inspirational session for you and that helped. And of course, super happy to answer any kind of questions if you have them. Wanted to also just share a couple of slides in terms of how that team operates that brought this to life and what we as a communications team actually do. So my team looks at quite a couple of disciplines. On the right, you'll see just 6 boxes of the units that I'm leading. So we have a specific unit that looks at content. They look at narrative, branding, and other things, marketing, campaigns like you've just seen, and others. And we're trying to really not look necessarily just at digital versus traditional media, for example. We're trying to look at how do you create stunning and amazing content and then that distribute through across all of the different channels as much as you can. A big part of what we're thinking about as well is really, of course, how do you build communities when we talk about digital and when we talk about a digital journey too. So we don't necessarily sell a product, right? We are asking our supporters and donors to come on a journey with us and to learn about environmental issues and sustainability issues and to time in again, help us on that journey to fix that problem. And so the approach that we're taking is really trying to figure out how do we map that journey throughout with them through very many different touch points. Because as well, this entire journey is built on a lot of learning that needs to be done. Many of us, for example, today think plastic is very evil, but plastic has some good use sometimes, and plastic was invented, if the myth is true, to stop deforestation. So sustainability usually is complicated and difficult, and to really understand environmental issues and how they can be solved, we have actually no other choice than to take people on a learning journey with us, and that's really what we're trying to focus around. We've thought very long in the conversion funnel and created this years ago, looking at how do we do that and how do we take people from one level to another? And I'm sure you will have seen an iteration of this in your organization. But we've also quite quickly learned that actually that's not necessarily how the real world works anymore. And we've realized as well, we've got to start looking at things more like we are in a relationship and we're building relationships with people meaningfully to take them on these journeys. So we're looking at this, and I usually call this my Tinder slide, from the early stages of a relationship where people are just curious, where how well is your first impression done? How do you keep it up? How do you stay relevant? At what point will you come to the place where you're having a conversation about marriage? And then, of course, we all know it takes a lot of work to keep staying happily ever after. But we're really looking at different ways. How do we speak to our audiences at what stage? And how often do we speak to them based on how long they've been with us as well? And even in kind of what formal or informal way do we speak with them? And we've realized, of course, as well that people are not just part of one community, they're all individuals that are part of many, many communities. And so we have to treat them as such and provide them things, obviously, based on their terms and based on how they like it and how they want to consume it. And I think the last piece I just want to also highlight very quickly, I think, is it's for us to do digital transformation, to also create these digital journeys, we think quite integrated. So a cross-functional team is very, very important for us. This is just a tiny snapshot of the first 6 stages that we take people through when they sign up to one of our journeys or one of our call to actions. And it really requires us to be entirely cross-functional. It also requires us to shift our mindset internally. How it is different from a typical sales journey. It's very different from some of the assumptions we've made as well in terms of when do people buy something? How often do we need to engage with them? When can they donate? We realize the best results come, the best conversion rates come if we all think quite integrated and challenge our own mindsets and assumptions. And what we've done, just as one piece that's helped us dramatically, is I, as communications head, implemented an editorial process where I'm only meeting heads of departments once every month for about 2 hours to really make sure that all of these journeys we're building are fully integrated and that all the other heads of departments can participate and that we're all going into the same direction. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you so much. I hope it's been a bit helpful.